One thing that's broken is the city's position itself to make us look like the bad guys all the time and to make this idea of private property ownership something bad. My name is Jan Lee. I'm a third-generation property owner in Chinatown, New York. My grandfather actually came to Chinatown and was able to purchase the buildings that we live in decades ago. We have two small tenement buildings in the middle of Chinatown. They are brick and mortar, older buildings built in 1870, and they do require a lot of maintenance, but we are trying to keep up with our maintenance. We've recently painted the building and they look great. As property owners in Chinatown, I think we've added a lot to the community. We've provided safe, affordable housing while also becoming good members of our community by joining civic groups and social service groups, and we've really contributed in ways just beyond housing. A typical day for a small property owner like myself is to make sure that I have heard from my assistant to let me know whether or not there's issues that day, or maybe we're picking up from other issues that have occurred in the building that I have to follow up on, whether it's maintenance or just everyday things that we have to look out for as we provide safe housing for our tenants. I think about the relationship that we have with our tenants in our building, some of whom have lived with us for decades and some of them are new. But we really value them as community members, not just as tenants, and they value the relationship that they have with me because they know that their issues, if they have any, will be answered quickly. They know that they're going to be living in a safe building because I vet their neighbors that are moving in, and I also value them as just members of my community. We have commercial tenants in my building. Fortunately, one very long-standing restaurant and another restaurant that's been with us for almost 15 years. We've had a variety of different commercial businesses. My own family had Chinese hand laundry and a dry cleaning business and a coffee shop in previous decades. You know, what this building means to us in our family is that my grandfather bought this at a time when the Chinese Exclusion Act actually limited the number of Chinese people coming into this country. So ownership of property for us isn't just a monetary thing. It has a lot of value to us about what we've achieved as a family, as a community, and as Chinese people in America. There's been a lot of times when we've thought about giving up and walking away from the property, particularly after things like 9/11 or Hurricane Sandy and recently with COVID. There's just the math that's not mathing anymore. It's very, very hard to make ends meet. And I think a lot of families like me are considering whether or not we should even stay in New York. What made us decide to stick it out is our tenants and our family being in the building itself. You know, it is my home too. I live in the building, and so it's very hard to tear yourself away from something that you've been a part of for decades. There were many times when the city's system of housing I have felt was stacked against us, you know, whether it was the HSTP laws of 2019 or further more regulations over rent stabilized units. There just seems to be a constant deluge of regulation that makes it harder for small property owners to overcome year after year. It's never a give and take. It's always one-sided. I think that one thing that's broken with the relationship between city and property owners is the city's position itself to make us look like the bad guys all the time and to make this idea of private property ownership something bad. It's given a lot of younger people a loss of hope in ever owning something, and I think that the city needs to repair that relationship. I think that our city council members and the city itself needs to understand that not all property owners can just sit back and collect rent. They actually do this as a job, and we really work very hard to provide affordable housing to the most vulnerable people in all 5 boroughs. Many of us have extended a lot of credit to people. Maybe we've given them a break here and there. I think that doesn't get talked about enough. And in actuality, there are more good relationships between tenant and landlord than bad ones, and they need to recognize that as well. I would say to somebody who has the attitude about landlords and tenants being on opposite sides is that's truly not the case in the majority of cases. We hear about this because the news wants us to hear about the bad relationships, but in actuality, in a city of 8.5 million people, many of them are renters, those relationships are actually just fine. SPONY as an organization matters a lot to myself and my sister who run our buildings because we have a resource that is so important. We can talk to people that have very similar problems that we're encountering, or understanding this very complicated regulations that are constantly being put on us. And also just as a reminder of who else are property owners. I've learned that SPONY has a very diverse membership, and I value that greatly. It means a lot to have an organization like SPONY in my corner because I know that it is an advocacy group. I know that they're advocating in all levels of government and that I feel secure that somebody is speaking for me. My family's outlook in our buildings and for future generations is a better understanding that these constant regulations and the fact that we don't get any consideration from the city to help us provide affordable housing for the existing housing stock that we live with and we maintain. By doing that, we would help Chinatown be more permanent and not shrink in the future. You know, the last census said that Chinatown residencies are actually shrinking and not growing. So the city is responsible partially for that.